The modern world loves dragging Christianity into court, which would be a little more intimidating if modern wisdom did not look like caffeinated toddlers assembling IKEA furniture with therapy words and stolen confidence. But then they open their mouths. Christianity it's too dark. Christianity, well, it's too bright. Christianity is a death cult. Christianity is a nursery. Apparently, Christianity is guilty of ruining joy and giving people too much joy. At some point, even the judge has to ask, are you accusing Christianity of a crime, or are you entering your emotional support diary into the evidence today? Chesterton saw it. The accusations were not just attacking Christianity, they were attacking each other. Maybe Christianity is not crooked. Maybe the whole age is standing sideways and calling dizziness, enlightenment. This is Orthodoxy 6C, the Shape of Sanity. Greetings, Remnant. Welcome to the Midweek Refuel, where we seek out the ancient wisdom, simply because the modern world has misplaced its mind and then congratulated itself on the storage solution. Tonight we are in Orthodoxy 6C, the Shape of Sanity, and in this section, Chesterton notices something that changed the direction of his thinking. The critics of Christianity during his time period were not merely attacking the faith, they were contradicting each other while attacking the faith. And that matters. It matters very much because when the accusations against Christianity start fighting each other, you eventually have to ask a question, whether Christianity is really the crooked thing in the room or not. Maybe the faith is not fragile. Maybe the faith is not hiding from hard questions. Maybe Christianity is the thing standing upright while the whole age leans sideways and calls the dizziness enlightenment. I sometimes feel that people outside the faith think Christianity is some fragile antique that we're all trying to protect for some reason. Like we are afraid somebody will scratch the stained glass or, Lord forbid, ask a hard question in Sunday school or breathe too close to the doctrinal china cabinet. But that is not what Chesterton was doing, not at all. Chesterton was not trying to protect Christianity. Chesterton was interrogating it. He was testing it. He was dragging it into the light and asking, are you life or are you death? And I understand that to the core of my being completely. If Christianity were truly a death cult, if it were truly opposed to joy, opposed to beauty, opposed to sanity, laughter, creation, courage, if it was opposed to life, then I would not spend 1 second defending it here today. I would kill it with my own 2 hands. Not Christ, God forbid. Not the truth, not the church that Christ actually founded, but the lie wearing his name? Gladly. The counterfeit religion that makes men smaller, colder, weaker, gloomier, and less alive? Absolutely, with my own hands. If that were Christianity, I would want it torn down brick by brick. If Christianity were a machine for manufacturing despair, I would put a wrench in the gears myself. If Christianity were some sort of pale fog smothering the world's color, I would open up the windows. If Christianity were the enemy of life, then life itself would command us to resist it. But Chesterton begins to notice that the critics cannot decide what kind of monster Christianity is supposed to be. And once he sees that, Christianity stops looking so small. It starts looking strangely, wonderfully, disturbingly large. So now, let's hear Chesterton in his own words. Thus, for instance, I was much moved by the eloquent attack on Christianity as a thing of inhuman gloom. For I thought, and still think, sincere pessimism the unpardonable sin. Insincere pessimism is a social accomplishment, rather agreeable than otherwise, and fortunately nearly all pessimism is insincere. But if Christianity was, as these people said, a thing purely pessimistic and opposed to life, then I was quite prepared to blow up St. Paul's Cathedral. But the extraordinary thing is this: they did prove to me in chapter 1, to my complete satisfaction, that Christianity was too pessimistic. And then in chapter 2, they began to prove to me that it was a great deal too optimistic. One accusation against Christianity was that it prevented men by morbid tears and terrors from seeking joy and liberty in the bosom of nature. But another accusation was that it comforted men with a fictitious providence and put them in a pink and white nursery. One great agnostic asked why nature was not beautiful enough and why it was hard to be free. Another great agnostic objected the Christian optimism, the garment of make-believe woven by pious hands, hid from us the fact that nature was ugly and that it was impossible to be free. One rationalist had hardly done calling Christianity a nightmare before another began to call it a fool's paradise. This puzzled me. The charges seemed inconsistent. Christianity could not at once be the black mask on a white world and also the white mask on a black world. The state of the Christian could not be at once so comfortable that he was a coward to cling to it, and so uncomfortable that he was a fool to stand it. If it falsified human vision, it must falsify it one way or another. It could not wear both green and rose-colored spectacles. I rolled on my tongue with a terrible joy, as did all young men of that time, the taunts which Swinburne hurled at the dreariness of the creed. Thou hast conquered, O pale Galilean, the world is grown gray with thy breath. But when I read the same poet's accounts of paganism, as in Atalanta, I gathered that the world was, if possible, more gray before the Galilean breathed on it than afterwards. The poet maintained, indeed, in the abstract, that life itself was pitch dark, and yet somehow Christianity had darkened it. The very man who denounced Christianity for pessimism was himself a pessimist. I thought there must be something wrong. And it did, for one wild moment, cross my mind that perhaps those might not be the very best judges of the relation of religion to happiness who, by their own account, had neither one nor the other. It must be understood that I did not conclude hastily that the accusations were false or the accusers fools. I simply deduced that Christianity must be something even weirder and wickeder than they made out. A thing might have these two opposite vices, but it must be a rather queer thing if it did. A man might be too fat in one place and too thin in another, but he would be an odd shape. At this point, my thoughts were only of the odd shape of the Christian religion. I did not allege any odd shape in the rationalistic mind. So, what do we do with this? Chesterton has not yet arrived at the full answer. He is still on the road. He's still seeking. He is still turning the thing over in his hands and staring at it. But something has happened. Christianity has stopped looking small to him. That is the first shift. The critics meant to make Christianity look foolish, but their contradictions made it look enormous. They meant to make it look irrational, but instead it began to look too large for their categories. They meant to shove it down into a box, but the box kept breaking, and that matters for us because many believers lose confidence not because Christianity has failed them, but because they have allowed unbelief to define the framing and the terms. The world says, your faith is too dark, so we apologize for sin, judgment, repentance, and the cross. And then the world says to us, your faith is too bright, so we apologize for providence, resurrection, joy, and hope. And before long, we are not defending Christianity at all. We are trimming it down, and we're trimming it down to fit inside the mood of the age. But Christianity is not here to fit the mood of the age. Christianity is here to heal the sight of the age. It teaches us how to see. It teaches us how to look at a world that is beautiful and bleeding. It teaches us how to look at man as both royal and ruined. It teaches us how to look at death as both terrible enemy and defeated foe. It teaches us how to look at sorrow without despair and joy without denial. That is why Christianity can sound strange to people. It is not strange because it is false. It is strange because truth is stranger than the little categories we build to avoid it. A flat age will always find a full faith very confusing. And a crooked age will always think uprightness looks tilted. A gloomy age will call Christian joy fake. And a shallow age will call Christian sorrow unhealthy. But Chesterton is beginning to see what every faithful Christian eventually has to see and has to learn. The faith does not become more believable when we make it smaller. It becomes more believable when we finally see how large it really is. It is large. It is large enough for sin and grace, large enough for tears and for laughter, large enough for Calvary and Easter, large enough for the grave and large enough for the garden, large enough for the whole strange shape of the human soul. So do not be embarrassed by the paradox. Do not be ashamed that Christianity refuses to flatten itself. Do not let the world make you choose between truth and joy, between holiness and hope, between repentance and resurrection. The faith is not a black mask on a white world. It is not a white mask on a black world. It is the opening of blind eyes. And once you begin to see through it, you start to realize the problem was never that Christianity was oddly shaped. The problem was that we had forgotten the shape of reality. Christ is King. Hail to the King.